I hope everybody is doing well out there. Thanks for tuning in. This is Bryan916 and welcome back to the channel. So today, guys, we're going to be talking a little bit about jack stands and how to actually pick a jack stand. First of all, let me start this video off by saying never ever should you get underneath the vehicle just being supported or being held up by a jack. A jack is not intended to support a vehicle. It's a lifting device, strictly. Let's say you worked at a warehouse that stocks some really heavy stuff. Maybe parts for large earth moving equipment, something really heavy. And you went to pick up that pallet and you slowly lifting that pallet up to be able to put it up on top of whatever you're storing it on. Now you can feel how heavy that pallet is by how slow the forks is moving. You can really feel it in your machine that is struggling to get that heavy pallet up. So let's say you get it up 10 feet in the air and you stop. Would it be a good idea to walk underneath that pallet, stand around underneath that pallet, work your whole shift underneath that pallet? No, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't even want to let any other employees go under that pallet. You would tell them to hold on. Let me get this out of the way first, because you understand that that's just a lifting device and it's not made to support weight. So it's the same thing with a jack. Never ever get under a vehicle just being held up by a jack. It's just a lifting device. You want to put jack stands under to support the vehicle. So I just picked up some new jack stands. I got rid of all my Harbor Freight jack stands. I'm pretty sure everybody out there is aware of that massive recall. I want to say like a couple million jack stands they ended up recalling. So I just got rid of mine and decided to buy a different set or a different brand, something maybe a little more reputable. Hopefully the jack stands that I bought aren't manufactured in the same factory that the Harbor Freight ones came in. You know, that's how messed up the game is nowadays. So I went with Big Red, made by Torin. This is a more reputable brand. It's been around for a while. I've never heard of any issues with the Big Red jack stand. So I'm gonna throw these jack stands up on the workbench here and give you guys a little bit more details on jack stands. All right, so this is the jack stand I decided to replace my Harbor Freight jack stand with. These are made by Torin, a Big Red jack stand. So just a little bit about jack stands. All you pros out there and you advanced DIYers already know the deal on jack stands. But for anybody out there who is a DIYer and just getting started, you always want to make sure you check out how much the jack stand can actually support. And in this case, this is a 6-ton jack stand. So 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. So if you do the math on that, this could support 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So this could support 12,000 pounds. And a typical like large SUV is going to be somewhere around 5,000 pounds. So maybe some of the larger pickup trucks, maybe around 6,000 pounds. So this should be able to handle pretty much any car, truck, SUV, pickup, minivan, etc. I think that if you're working on a smaller car, obviously this is a pretty tall jack stand. So this will get your average, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, type vehicle really high off the ground. So this jack stand is going to be probably more suited for a truck or SUV. But here's my advice though, if you're actually working on like a smaller vehicle, my advice is to always go 3 tons. I don't really recommend a 2-ton jack stand. I think entry level should be a 3 tons. It also depends on what you're working on, but that's just where I like to start. So flipping these jack stands around, there's a lot of people who don't feel safe working under jack stands. I know this is some of the older guys don't necessarily feel safe working under jack stands. Jack stands are safe to work under. Let me give you a close-up on how these things work. There's really no way a vehicle will be able to crush this in order to bring the vehicle down. It's not gonna flatten and turn this thing into a pancake. That's just not possible. You would need a massive hydraulic press capable of massive amounts of power to be able to do something like that. To support a vehicle, that's not gonna happen. Usually safety issues or accidents happen when this accidentally gets kicked. If you're working under the car and that accidentally gets kicked, and then you see the vehicle will come down, but it'll still stop where we are here at the base of the jack. So what you see in this video here is not something that would typically happen. This is actually the failed or recalled jack stands by Harbor Freight. So typically that wouldn't happen. So what I recommend is to have a really tall jack stand. Because if you have a really tall jack stand, if it in an event that it does fail on you and the lever releases and it slides in, well, if it's a tall jack stand and the base itself is tall, it'll still provide quite a bit of clearance between the ground and the bottom of the vehicle. So you should still be safe, because it's not going to come and crush the whole base of the jack stand and flatten it like a pancake. So if you start off with a tall base and extend it out, if in an event that it fails and it slides all the way back down into the base of the jack stand itself is tall, and so it'll still provide that clearance for you. So I always recommend to buy a much taller jack stand. Doesn't matter if you're working on a smaller car or not. Always buy much taller jack stands. So jack stands are safe to use. So again, let me give you a close-up on how they work. Okay, so take a look here. You can see these teeth on this big steel piece here, and this is going to be the different heights that you can put it on. But what happens is the other part of the jack stand is going to slide into this groove and lock it in place. So you can see this is the other end that locks into the other steel teeth. All right, and so they're at an angle. You can see that this has a bit of an upward angle, if you notice there, and the tooth here has more of a downward angle, so that they lock into one another. So here's a close-up of that in action. You can see that tooth is locked right in there. So when it comes down, it locks. So this is one type of jack stand. There's obviously other type of jack stands that instead of utilizing this piece right here to wedge in between the teeth here, in other style jack stands, it may just be a hole here, and you slide a pin through the hole. So I also highly recommend a safety pin feature like this. So when I slide this pin in here, you see that it's able to lock up against that next tooth, as well as the tooth that's already locked in there. But also it prevents you from being able to kick this part here. So I highly recommend these type of jack stands with the safety pin features, or the type that takes a locking pin that goes through completely through the base of the jack stand and through this steel piece here. And those are better because it doesn't have this feature here, so there's no way you could accidentally kick this and it comes down. Okay, so I do recommend when you do pick up a jack stand, you want to make sure that it has some type of safety feature like this on there, or at the very least make sure that it's a reputable company that you buy it from. If it's known to have recalls and things like that, I would probably just avoid that altogether. It's just really not worth it. And another thing I wanted to touch on a common issue that I see is that people who work in maybe a slanted driveway or an uneven surface, or a surface that's soft like grass or something like that, these jack stands are not meant to be used on a soft surface, and they're not meant to be used on an uneven surface. So you want to use the jack stand on a level surface. Now, if it has a slight slope on it, and I'm not talking nothing, you know, severe, but just a slight slant, here's a little tip that might help you using the jack stand. So what I like to do, if the driveway is at a slight slope and it's going to be sort of linked over like this, because you know the driveway is at an angle, so when you put the jack stand on there, it's gonna be at an angle. What you can do, and one thing that I usually do, is I'll put, depending on where it is, the angle, I'll put something under there that could take up that space and make it level. You know, you want to come up with something similar to this to make it level. I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but at the front of my driveway, it's sloped, and you can see that the jack stand is at an angle. And so what you want to do is stick something under here. It don't have to be a wrench, but you can stick something under there like that and make the jack stand 100% level when you're working on a sloped driveway. Again, it doesn't have to be a wrench. I'm just using this for demonstration purposes. But this is what you want to do to prevent getting under a vehicle in a sloped driveway with the jack stand at an angle. You really don't want to do that. You want to keep it as level as possible. So next is when actually placing a jack stand underneath the vehicle. Where you place it is very critical. This is something that I don't think you should learn on a YouTube video. I think that this is something that you should actually learn in person by an experienced auto technician or an advanced DIYer, somebody who has worked with jack stands for a long time and they know where to place the jack stand. Because if you watch a video on where to place the jack stand, that person that's showing you, that could be specific to that vehicle. Different vehicles have different places where it should be placed. So judging off a video, you might see, well, that looks like where he placed it on my vehicle, and then you place it there, and that's a total different part of the vehicle's anatomy. So I don't think that learning where to place jack stands via a video, I don't think that's the best way to do it. I think this is something you need to learn in person and have somebody explain to you where to place a jack stand on different vehicles, because it definitely varies on different vehicles as to where you place the vehicle, or where you place the jack stand rather, and how you should have the jack stand position. Should you put it this way on something? Should you turn it that way on something? I definitely think that it's critical to learn where to place jack stands by somebody experienced to actually teach you how to do it. Alright, so how to buy a jack stand. I think the first thing is to always start at 3 tons. Alright, here's a tall jack stand that's 3 tons, and here's a small jack stand that's 3 tons. But as I stated earlier, it's always much better to go with the tall jack stand, even if you're working on a smaller car, because you don't really have to extend the jack stand up, so there's really no risk of the jack stand sliding down back inside the base. It can just rest right at the base level, and it'll still be plenty enough height for you. So I think from a safety standpoint, it's always better to go with taller jack stands, as I stated earlier. So I think 3 tons puts you in a pretty safe realm of being able to put different vehicles on your jack stand and feel safe and comfortable knowing that it can hold 3 tons. You already know that 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. So if you do the math, that's 2, 4, 6,000 pounds that this little jack stand can hold. So you should be safe there. Next thing you want to do is make sure the jack stand has a good reputation. You certainly don't want to buy jack stands that's known to have been recalled, or if you've had any type of bad report from somebody about a jack stand, just avoid it. It's not worth getting hurt. I know a person who got crushed by a vehicle before, just his lower half, just one of his legs got crushed really bad, and there was nothing from what he told me. The doctor said there was really not much they could do about that injury. It's called a crush injury, and there's really nothing in modern medicine that they can do about a crush injury. So you really want to make sure you do a good job keeping the vehicle supported. So buy a good quality, reputable jack stand. Next, if you could get a jack stand much like this one with the safety pin on it, I highly advise you buy a jack stand that has a safety pin on it, or the type that uses a pin that pushes all the way through. All right, so it's not able to lower or be crushed because of the pin will hold it. So that's my advice on how to use jack stands, how to buy jack stands. I've been using Craftsman jack stands for a long time. These are Craftsman jack stands, and these jack stands have been great. I've never had any issue using these jack stands. Recently, I've been using these big red 6-ton jack stands on the suspension work that I've been doing on my Tahoe. I've been very happy with these jack stands. I love the wide base that it has, and I love the safety feature on there. And when I set the vehicle on the jack stands, you can really feel how sturdy and how strong and how easy these jack stands are able to hold the weight of my Tahoe. So this is a very good brand to use. If you're interested in a set of big red Torin jack stands, I'll leave a link in the description. This is not a paid promotion or a sponsor or anything like that. I didn't receive these for free. I bought these with my own money to replace those Harbor Freight jack stands because there was a recall on them, and I wanted to look for a more reputable jack stand. So these I think are a good option. They had really good reviews online, and I really liked the safety feature. So if you're interested in getting your hands on a set of these, I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description to where I got them on Amazon. All right, guys, so that's it. Hopefully somebody was able to benefit from this information. Next time you go out to use your jack stands, hopefully this little bit of information and the tips that I showed helped you out. Perhaps if you decide to buy a jack stand, maybe this video will help you in selecting the next jack stand that you purchase, or someone who may be reluctant to get under a vehicle being supported by jack stands. Maybe this video will help you to see that jack stands are safe to use. Anyway, this is Bryan916. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys on the next one.